Next Step Leadership's very first sponsor, Carolina Cellar, Sweet Blends and Provisions, Garlic Sage and Sea Salt. Check them out on Instagram. Hi everybody, welcome back to Next Step Leadership, the August LeaderCast interview here today. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for being here and working with us. We're coming to you live from, where are we, Asheville?
AB Tech Inca.
AB Tech Inca, thank you. You don't know we're here, but we're stealing some space. Thank you so much. In a nutshell, we're excited. A lot of these questions came from you, and I asked the question, what questions would you ask a Youth Apprenticeship Coordinator? And I think we've challenged Joyce today.
For sure.
We brought some really good questions to the table. So today's interview is mostly, I would say, 8 of our questions have come from viewers and people who have interest through LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, and the YouTube channel. So thank you so much for the continued support. The book is out. Volume 1 is out and available through the Linktree. Check us out. Things are good. And lastly, this month is the LeaderCast is in honor of Matthew McGrone, who passed 2 years ago. Good, close, and personal friend. This is in honor of you. Excited, because this was a dream we both had about 11 years ago, and here it is.
Wow.
We have shirts. We got mugs. Working on pens. They're coming. So, I have with me today Joyce Milling, Youth Apprenticeship Coordinator for the great state of North Carolina. Good afternoon.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The introductory question always is, who is Joyce Milling?
Thanks, Angelo. So first and foremost, I'm a wife and a mother. I have 2 kids, they're 8 and 11, and I have the distinct honor of working closely with my husband. We work both for ApprenticeshipNC. Speaking of work, what ApprenticeshipNC is I develop youth apprenticeship programs with high schools, community colleges, businesses, put that all together, and we have an apprenticeship program. I've always been a lover of the natural world as well. I was a biology major in college and recently discovered scuba diving, so that's been a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we are. We're setting up apprenticeships in drone technology, pre-nursing, manufacturing, the trades, just about anything you can think of, veterinary medicine, all of that can be apprenticed. So that's what I've been working on.
So you take the opportunity with business, education in the community, and you weave programs together.
Exactly.
And really look at providing opportunity for students and,
that's right.
and their communities. Wow.
Yep.
Thank you. That's so cool. And I'm imagining a lot of the listeners will not let this go if I don't say. So you work that closely with your husband at home, and then see him at work. So that's okay.
Yeah.
That takes a lot. That's got to be an awesome bond. So it just goes to show you what kind of professional and home that you guys have. So that's awesome.
It's true. Yeah. We're pretty lucky.
Awesome. So Joyce, that sounds like a wild amount of. First of all, you don't get to sleep because you're at home running, and then you're really thinking about the community and everything else. But what are your current goals?
Yeah. So honestly, Angelo, when I thought about this, I really struggle with goal setting. So a lot of times I lead into more of doing in my life what aligns with my values. And really thinking deeply about values. But I really like this question, and I want you to hold me accountable because, as I said, I struggle with goal setting. So I wanted to lay out 3 goals, essentially. The first one is I really want to read this book. It's been on my mind for a while. It's called Burnout. Yeah. And it's by Emily Nagoski. And what she does is she really looks at what is a stress cycle. So you talked about sleep. Like, sleep is so critical to stress.
Shout out to Sarge.
Definitely. So, with that book, it might sound funny to put a book on my goal list, but I actually gave that book to my colleagues when I left my last job because we'd all been talking about burnout, and I had recently learned about that book. And I've always been better about giving advice than taking it. And once my colleagues read that book, they really said, Joyce, this is a book for you. Like, don't get burned out on your next job.
Here's your gift.
Here it is back.
We read it, but we want you to know that you need to read it too.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I definitely want to read that this year and make it a part of my lifestyle. The second thing is playing racquetball at least once a week and walking the dogs at least twice a week. Another thing I struggle with is physical fitness. And that might come as a shock to you, but I've recently learned, and however old I am, that sweat is a good thing. Like, it really helps you feel good, and then those endorphins, they do magic when we're at home. So I think it's like really just kind of getting into that mindset and reminding myself, again, with that values-driven life, physical fitness hadn't been part of my values. And so now kind of realigning that and recognizing, hey, this can play into me being present, me being positive. And so those are my kind of favorite things to do. The third thing is finding new ways to mentor folks. In my last role, I had a team of folks that I've supervised. In this new role, I don't have anybody that I mentor. I also was previously a foster parent, so I was able to do some mentoring in that way. And shout out to my foster daughter. She got me this necklace. So, you know, that was definitely a beautiful moment in my life and a way to help mentor folks. She was in high school at the time, and so having that opportunity. So I really need to kind of dive into that goal a little bit more and string it out and figure out, okay, what do I need as far as mentoring? But that's definitely something that I enjoy and want to get back into.
So healthy head,
yeah,
healthy heart, a healthy body, and people.
Yes.
Getting back into people.
Totally.
That's an all-encompassing lifestyle and really cool set of goals.
Awesome. Well, hold me accountable.
Yeah, I will do my best.
Okay.
So the next set of questions are from our viewers.
Okay.
All right, and I color code them for myself so when we go through them I don't miss them and I want them to have them, but then I also write notes so I could come back to things. So first question from our viewers was, how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader? And what are your daily habits that move you forward?
Absolutely. So for me, I'm a big talker, I'm a big communicator. So listening is definitely something I need to continue to work on. Their listening skills are something that you need for your whole life. Daily routines, I tend to be a very spontaneous human and I tend to buck routines, but one thing I can't live without is my cup of tea. That keeps me calm, keeps me focused.
Is there a flavor?
Earl Grey.
Earl Grey
is my jam.
Okay.
Yep. The more bergamot in that tea, the better. So the other thing I would say that I really live by is my planner. And being kind of really passionate about the earth lately, it's been a little struggle because I like my paper calendar. But just today, I think I found my ideal calendar. So I'm very excited about that. Ever since college, I've kept a color-coded calendar and made sure that you have.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe that's like a common denominator.
That's great.
Something that we can advise people on.
Color code, people. Color code.
Everything and anything. But with those color codes, I really try to align, okay, how much time am I spending on meetings? How much time am I spending doing busy work? How much time am I spending, now I'm going to add that physical fitness component in. But also think about how much time is my family getting, right?
Sure,
so like not just putting tasks and to-dos on that list, but things like a Girl Scout meeting or, you know, going to a sports practice, like looking at those in a different color, right? And having that color align with, you know, I started this interview with I'm a wife and mother first and foremost.
Yes.
So if I'm not putting time for my family on that calendar, I'm not aligning my time with my values. So I would say those are the kind of things: a cup of tea, a good calendar, and some color coding.
I love it.
Yeah.
They do. Now, so going into that,
Yeah.
Leading into that, what would you say are the most important attributes that a leader has?
Yeah, this took me a while to figure out. I would say empathy and honesty. Honesty has always been a strong thing for me, but empathy, I needed to grow in that a little bit. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Myers-Briggs personality assessment, but when I did that, I was it came up as a thinker the first time I did that, and that was my freshman year of college. And I think that had a lot to do with when I first started college, I was like really into what am I going to learn here.
Knowledge!
I know, it's so good, it's so good. And I am a pretty literal person, and so that thinker kind of aligned with me. But as I moved through college and in my leadership journey, I moved into the role of an RA and started to really realize that in order to lead people and in order, again, with accountability, you have to bring empathy into that picture or you're not going to be successful. And interestingly enough, I took a Myers-Briggs many years later, and it turned out now that instead of just a thinker, I was more empathetic. And so I kind of had balanced that element of my personality a little bit to really enhance my leadership style.
You heard it here, folks. Joyce also has evolved as a leader, and she went back and double-checked herself with Myers-Briggs. If you've never used Myers-Briggs, check it out, see where you are, and how you may or may not change. Empathy and honesty were the two that you feel are what make a successful leader. What's lacking or what's missing today amongst leaders or leadership or managing?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I would say self-reflection and vulnerability.
Ooh.
I am also, I'll go back to Myers-Briggs just for a second, I'm a 10-0 extrovert. So I have no element of introversion in my body. So self-reflection can kind of be challenging sometimes. My husband, on the other hat, is an introvert. And so I've kind of learned through conversations with him the power of self-reflection. And I think without self-reflection, you can't really be honest if you're not being honest with yourself. So when you go and you look at self-reflection and lean into that idea of you need honesty as a leader, well, you can't be honest with others unless you're honest with yourself, right? And so really self-reflecting, that's how I got on the idea of listening and needing to build my listening skills is in self-reflection. Sometimes I'm finishing people's sentences. That's not the best habit, right?
Yeah. Do you listen or wait to talk?
Exactly.
That's actually a lesson.
It's a good balance. It's a good layer of balance. And the other thing with being vulnerable, I think as a culture, we have built in this idea of perfectionism and not being able to make mistakes.
Yes.
And I think if we can kind of reassess that and really look at the value of making mistakes and recognizing that if we don't make mistakes, we're not really learning.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so we have to make those mistakes.
You bring up 2 points that I do want to touch on. When we met with Brad, we sat with Brad. Brad discussed what it feels like to be told, man, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe and what it's like to stand just naked in the mirror of this is who I am, being realistic, being honest. And then the other part about making mistakes. If all of you remember, when I did interview with Brad, we had a Next Step Leadership piece of paper attached to the wall.
Nice.
And we were just going for it. We were just trying to share. So you bring up some things that you kind of hopefully evolve to, and what I want to tell people who are watching us and listening, it's okay to try. It's okay to learn from. It doesn't have to be considered failing if you're trying. You're working on who you are and what you're working through.
Yep.
So that also ties into it. What does consistency mean to you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm kind of a spontaneous person, so habit forming and consistency tend to be challenging for me.
Here.
Yeah.
There.
Exactly.
Here. Yeah.
But I do think. Yeah. What squirrel? But I do think when I think about consistency, for me, that's always showing up and being ready to act. I think consistency and dependability go really hand in hand. And being dependable and consistent from that perspective are incredibly important to me. I want people to know that when they email me, when they call me, they are going to get a response and they're going to get a quick response. So that is really what consistency looks like in my life, and I think the importance of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Since the theme has also been reflection, I'm going to go back into my notes
Okay.
and find out who asked me this question for you.
Yeah.
Because whoever you are, you get choice. I'm inboxing you, you get choice, and I'm mailing you the merch that you want.
Yes.
10 years from now,
Okay.
when you are out leading in the world,
Yep.
what do you hope to hear from others when they mention you as a leader? I find this to be a fantastic legacy question,
Yeah.
and whoever asked me this, I will come back to you, and you have choice of merch, and I'm going to make her hold me accountable because I'm going to send her a picture of whatever I'm sending you.
Nice. I think for me, it's that I cared. I went above and beyond, both for someone and or something, right? I try to live a life of passion. Sometimes that can be a little tricky because my passion sometimes comes across really intensely. But that passion is for my family, for my work, and for the earth. I hope to have an impact on one of those things, if not all three. So, just this morning I was shopping for school supplies, for example, and I spent over an hour shopping for school supplies. A lot of people just go to Target and load up the basket.
Oh, it's like supermarket sweep.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Done.
Yeah.
And I love Target, no shade on Target, but, I was looking for what are some recycled school supplies, what are some plant-based school supplies, so definitely trying to in every opportunity come back to what are those things that I'm passionate about, and how do we make sure that we have that impact?
And where
for
you
sure.
can support those options.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
and
you.
What's interesting, I'm glad you said you like this question,
That's a great
because
question.
no joke, Angelo. So I was getting ready to do my first job search, and this is a good lesson for everybody in practice. And if you haven't read Angelo's book
Message!
yet, practice. He has a chapter on practice, and that really resonated with me when I saw this question, because I was like, no joke. First job search, I went to job interview after job interview. I did a big, for our profession, it was like a warehouse. You met with all these different colleges, and failure after failure.
It's like a cattle call.
Oh my
I've
gosh.
been to that. Yeah.
Yes,
I'm in the
it's
really nice
crazy.
suit, just walking around. Hi, no, will you break up? You're breaking up with me. I didn't even talk to you
It feels
yet.
like The Bachelor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But anyway, so I kept getting denied, and my team of friends that I worked with, my colleagues, they were like, Joyce, you are so good at this job. Like, how are you not getting hired? You have an awesome resume. What is happening? And so they did an intervention with me, and over lunch,
Job interview intervention.
Yes,
Okay.
we did a mock interview, and I was like, y'all, I've done so many interviews. I don't need a mock interview. Like, I'm a grown woman.
I got this.
It's fine. Power of practice right here. So we're going through, and they get to the age-old question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? No joke. I was answering, I see myself as a mother. Guess what? No one was hiring me. And it wasn't a feminist thing. It was just a forward thinking,
well, if she's not going to be here in 9 to 10 months.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so it was one of those, and I wasn't giving them much with my answer,
sure.
right? Like, I was saying, yes, yeah. I do want to be a mother, but I wasn't helping them to see, what am I going to do for them?
Or the more cocky answer that they might get is, your boss.
Right.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
So it could go either way.
Yeah. And I wanted to be genuine, right?
Sure.
I wanted to have that authenticity and that honesty. So they helped me devise a more honest answer that also showed companies what I would look for. And no joke, next interview I got hired straight away. Yep. Practice. What makes perfect.
Here's a fun one.
Yeah.
Of the two.
Yeah.
Which do you value most?
Okay.
Vision or integrity?
This is such a hard question. I think both are really important for leadership. So whoever asked this question, you've done some deep thinking. But I will have to lean into integrity. I think that, yes, although you do need a strong vision to accomplish something and to be a strong leader, if you just have vision and you're lacking integrity, that house is going to crumble. That house of cards is going to come falling down at some point. You might start out kind of like a rocket and, with that strong vision, really propel an idea or concept forward, but it's going to crash. It's going to come down. We've seen this time and time again with large companies, with, even entrepreneurs who are just like going gangbusters, and then all of a sudden it comes crumbling down. And I think a lot of times we see that comes crashing down without integrity. So I think that's important.
It will come crumbling down.
It will.
Is being a good follower important for becoming a good leader?
Okay. So I have to be honest here. If we talked about honesty, I do have to be honest. I am not a great follower. So it's a little bit hard for me to acknowledge that you have to be a good follower to be a good leader. However, I did follow my husband into the work of apprenticeship, so might be a better follower than I'm giving myself credit for. But I do think, I would like to reframe it if I can.
Sure.
So instead of being a good follower, I'd like to say that it takes being a good servant to be a good leader. So when we think about leadership, I really love the concept of servant leadership. There's so many different leadership theories and things like that, and I always find myself coming back to servant leadership. And I saw some of that in your book too, so I see that you also have that
I did not pay her to shamelessly plug the Lessons in Leadership Volume 1. She's really just super kind to me.
Yeah. But yeah, that servant leadership that's so important. There was a neighbor of mine, and he was a lot of the reason that I went to the college that I went to. So we grew up together, we played baseball together, traded baseball trading cards, and
sure.
Did paper routes together and things like that. It does age me a bit, but that's okay.
I still have a box of them, so let's.
Yeah. Now it's Pokemon cards,
My grandson's gonna have a mint when he's 20, I hope.
Yes. But what happened was, my first year of college, he was an RA. And one of his programs, so when you're an RA, you do all these programs, he went around, and anybody who signed up for his program, and he just called it servant leadership, right? If they signed up for that program without knowing what the title was, his program was actually that he went around and cleaned every one of their bathrooms in their rooms. And that was his program on servant leadership. He didn't get in front of people, he didn't talk to people, he didn't do a presentation. If you signed up, he came around and cleaned your bathroom. But those students didn't know he was going to come clean their bathrooms. It was kind of one of those, passing it forward, paying it forward. And that has always been my favorite example of servant leadership. Because here he
never know.
Yeah,
he was
in a leadership position, a position of power, and he came in and he cleaned their bathrooms.
One of the things
that awesome.
In regard to mystery shopping, higher education institutions, I like to go in as a student. So I will come in and do the admissions process, try to sit with financial aid, try to sit with the dean of a program or a program chair, and then come back and tell the institution how I felt as a student, but more of in a servant leadership perspective.
Yeah.
Here's the morale at your institution. Here's what it felt like to come in. I was scared, or I was happy, or I left that program chair and I was like, man, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So the form of leadership, and then what kind of happens is you stay a servant for a while, and then you become transformational because you want to watch other people take on the growth and opportunities. So absolutely. I love that. You got me all fired up.
Okay, good.
So that leads me down fired up. What motivates you?
Yeah. So for me, it's not one thing. I think it's really the people and the places around me that motivate me. I'm surrounded by wonderful, smart, hilarious people. And if you've ever heard that old age the adage of you are who you hang out with.
Yeah, I've had someone say you are the sum of the 5 closest people in your circle. Yes,
there's so many ways to say it, but I really think surrounding yourself with positive, healthy people is really important. For 2 of my 3 goals, I want to prioritize exercise, right?
Sure.
And so I really think that, we have to kind of move forward and hopefully have some accountability with that. So my husband's really big into physical fitness himself, so I think we're going to kind of try and hold each other accountable with that one. But I really think that I'm not going to achieve those goals if I don't have people around me that are talking to me, keeping me accountable. And if anybody needs that accountability partner, don't hesitate to reach out because I'm still looking for ways to mentor.
There you go. So these are some, so transitioning, we have some next step leadership questions specific that I like to add. What are you reading right now? What is on the nightstand or the Kindle?
Yep. So honestly, Angela, you didn't ask me to say this, but really your book.
What lesson number are you on?
So we're on 5 right now.
5, okay.
And my 8-year-old son loved lesson 3, which was the 300 episode, because he's been begging to watch that movie, and I've said,
a little inappropriate.
Yep, I said you're not watching the movie, but you can learn the lessons of leadership from the
Note
movie.
to self: the book is PG enough where you can, in fact, learn about the movie 300.
Exactly. It was awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. I will say though. Here, wait. I'll take my water in a second. I have to say about the book I just read though. There's a book by an author, E. Tough Room, and her book is A Woman Is No Man.
Okay.
And I really enjoy books where I can learn about a place or a culture. They've always said a book is a way to travel the world, right? Like if you can't afford a plane ticket, you can't, don't have the time, whatever. If you're worried about the virus right now, I don't want to go anywhere, read a book. Read a good book. And her book, A Woman Is No Man, excellent book. Helped me really dive into and understand a little bit about a culture that I had no exposure to, and learn about her life and some of the trauma, and also how women and men are perceived. I think that that's really important. And then I got to the end of the book, and I was reading the acknowledgments. Always read the acknowledgments. Super cool. And I learned that she was a North Carolina Community College System professor. And I was like, what? I work for the North Carolina Community College System. You're a professor at one of our colleges.
Shout out to ETOF if you're out there.
For sure. Awesome book. Awesome state. You got it. Yeah. Awesome. Local writer's kick, I guess.
That's crazy. I love it. I love
Yeah.
everything about that. Now, we've had some time, the audience is getting to know you as well.
Mhm.
What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about you, and how do you get through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually talked to one of my colleagues about this a little bit too. I think for me, it's that I am very loud, and I am very direct in my communication style. So sometimes folks find me intimidating. And I hope that you've seen through this interview that there is a lot of heart in me. There's, a lot of compassion. And
Well, the perception would be oh, she's
tough.
She
Rough
but
around
the
the
thing
edges,
is, it's just your candy shell of I'm just trying to listen.
Yeah,
I got
we
some
got the
ideas.
things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. How do you break that down? How do you work through that? For
Yeah, so I think one is really trying to find any opportunity I can to have that one-on-one, more realistic connection with folks. I also try and weave in some humor. I really enjoy laughing. I hope other people will laugh. There was a RA that I mentored that before she was an RA with me, she was one of my students, and she always would say, once we did get to know each other really well, she's like, man, Joyce, I stayed out of your way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And she's like, you just have this like power stride, and you're not messing around, and you have somewhere to go, you're gonna get there. And being in college at the time, we wore lanyards, right? It wasn't all on our phone, so we had our keys and our things on our lanyards. And she's
so you have the janitor,
this big chunk of keys,
thing of cheese.
Yeah. And so she's like, I just stayed out of your way. And then so that helped me to really realize a lot about body language and how the way that I'm coming through. And my rebuttal to her was always, but I was always smiling. She's like, Joyce, I never got there. I never got to the smile because you were just.
Here she comes.
Yeah. And so I'm trying really hard to slow down.
But it took time to get there.
Yeah. And so really kind of helping people to feel at ease around me. And I've also got to regulate my volume every now and again. So working on it.
What would you say has been your path to leadership?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring it back to the family. I am an oldest child. I have 4 siblings. And so I think leadership really for me started in the home. And I was never put in charge of my siblings, so I'm not advocating for that as a leadership method at all.
I'm in charge.
Yeah, no.
You cannot have Captain Crunch today. Yeah.
Because I think that sets up some weird family dynamics sometimes. But my closest sibling in age to me is about 6 years younger than me. So I've always been kind of hanging around more adults. I never had cousins, so that was another thing. So I was always hanging out with my parents' friends, things like that. Always hearing about current events.
An old soul also, right?
Yeah. And so I think, and that's something I'm trying to, even though my kids are pretty close in age, trying to replicate for them. Hopefully after this, we're going to have some dinner, hang out, and you will be that for my kids and helping them to learn what it is to converse with adults and not just be on play dates, if you will.
Sure.
So I think that was really a big start of it. And then after that, I went to college. And I was accepted into what's called, at my college at the time, Christopher Newport University, was the President's Leadership Program. So we were the inaugural class of that. And
talk about setting the bar and setting the tone. Yeah.
And so what I learned from that, though, because they weren't polished yet in their program, we got to see what transparent leadership looks like, right? Transparent facilitation,
For those of you that don't know, we hijacked this table. So transparent leadership has been all up in this space today.
Exactly. And so, kind of doing it on the fly also gives you that empathy too. Like you see the people who are leading you trying their best, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to be perfect. And that helped me break down some of those concepts of perfectionism and how if you're going to be a leader, you have to have all your stuff together. You have to be ready to go. There's some authenticity to the idea of we're making it here. We're doing our best. We're bringing our A game.
The sign's on the paper, but it's here. Right,
you can see it, right? But it does its job. So I think that's really important.
So leading down that path, we've talked about things that have derailed leadership. We've talked about, I'm just trying. I'm going to use the F word.
Okay, I'm ready.
Tell us about a time you failed as a leader.
These are hard to acknowledge, aren't they?
We talk about that just being in front of the mirror and going, okay.
Yeah.
I messed that up, or I could have did two scenarios more. And I know a lot of you out there are thinking the same thing. We're going through it right now.
Yeah.
Tell us about a time that way.
Yeah. So I think when I fail as a leader, it's when I fail to prioritize the right things or the right people.
Who's on the bus?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other aspect of it is that when we fail, we tend to get defensive, right? And so a lot of times we can play this blame game.
Well, you didn't, but you, yeah.
Yep, exactly. So interestingly enough, I fell into that boat myself. I was called to the president's office for an issue that was happening in the residence halls in my last job. And my first reaction was like, oh, I did everything I could for these people. Why are they complaining?
I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for those pesky kids.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we definitely had a Dennis the Menace kind of moment there. But, you know, really thinking about, in that self-reflection, why did we get here, right? Because at the end of the day, I had a student who was really upset with their experience, right? And my initial reaction was, well, it must have been something someone else did. But then as I engaged in that self-reflection, I really got to thinking, okay, wait, here was the problem. The problem is that I was trying to be the person who the exterminator contacted, the person who the student contacted, the person who the student's parents contacted, the person who the student's roommates contacted. And then I was also
closing off the funnel.
Oh yeah, I was bringing them bags to bag their clothes in, and I didn't even tell you what the issue was. They had bed bugs. I mean, when you're in college, this is like the worst. But I was trying to play all those roles, right? I was also the guy who was repairing, there was a little hole in the wall. You care,
you're trying to fix it.
Bringing that passion. Here's what happened though, is that when I was trying to be all those roles, you can't humanly do that, right? You've got too many balls. And you're going to school,
right?
Yeah,
so you're going to school, you have your own pieces.
Too many balls in the air.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I said, okay, wait a minute, right? Like, people are getting upset, and the bed bugs are persisting. Like, we went a couple of weeks with these bed bugs, and we had been through 2 rounds of exterminator, and I'm like, what is wrong here? I was called to the table, called the president's office, and it was deemed that one of my colleagues would take over the communication directly with the students. And that intervention really helped me to be a stronger leader, because that made me stop and say, delegation. Delegation needs to happen in these situations. I need to trust my team.
I'm alone on an island.
Right. I need to bring in the other people who are equally willing to help. And as soon as we started delegating those roles, suddenly the students were happier. We had better communication with the exterminator, and we got rid of those bugs, finally.
Yeah, their quality of life and quality of space. And
I was happy.
And you were happy.
Right? Like, why am I doing everybody else's job?
It is a powerful moment to sit down and go, where and how did we get here?
Exactly, yeah.
So if you're out there having a where and how did this happen moment, take a step back, look at yourself and go, self, what could I have been a part of? What could I have controlled? And thank you. Thank you for that. That's a raw and real answer. Not everyone's going to tell you that one.
And who's here to help me? Right?
Yes. Yeah, you are not alone, by the way. You are not alone on an island. You can reach out to both of us. We don't even know what your problem is. We will try to help you anyway.
Indeed.
Now, this one's really passionate for me. I've been on a lot of committees in regard to diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging. So my question for you is, what efforts have you made or been involved with to foster diversity, competence and understanding for people?
For sure. So most recently, I've had a lot of passion around gender acceptance and gender diversity. So my most recent efforts have been around ensuring that anything we put forward, any application, anything like that, has more than just gender options across the binary. So I really want to make sure that any person who does not fit within the binary feels accepted and included into our programs, even at the start, right, at the very beginning, at the application point. Because if you don't feel included or accepted at the beginning, why would you move forward with that, right? You're going to start with a bad taste in your mouth. On the flip side, when we talk about accessibility, I've had the pleasure of working with Beth Butler and Disability Inn in North Carolina to really think through what are our pain points, what are those times where we're not thinking through an apprenticeship opportunity and ensuring that the accessibility is there from the beginning to the end. So that has been the biggest right now that I've been working around gender diversity and accessibility. I also think that when we look at topics of accessibility, you know, really thinking about, are there barriers that are implemented, especially for folks of different socioeconomic backgrounds, different races and ethnicities? Is there something about the way that we've put this together that is creating a barrier for somebody? Sure. My friends at PIA, which is the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeship, said it best at a conference we went to this year, is when you're developing an apprenticeship program, you really got to look at it from the lens of the apprentice. Right? And kind of what you were saying about being that like secret shopper. Sure. If you go and you act in the role as a student, that helps that college to get that perspective of what are my students experiencing. They're not always
thinking about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So kind of rethinking it from that perspective, having diversity and inclusion be a part of that thought process, not just thinking about it as a white female apprentice. What would a white female apprentice think about in this role? But you know, to go deeper.
I think that I can't begin to think about the power of diversifying a workforce.
Oh, yeah.
So that's probably one of the best. Sorry, past LeaderCast interviews, but that might be one of the most powerful answers I've heard to date. So you have work ahead of you, because that's one of my questions.
Nice.
Best question of the year might get merch. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We have come to the end. The last question, Joyce.
It's flown by. It's
been fun. The energy is awesome. I want to stay and do this, but we might have to go get some tasty treats out here.
I think so.
What thoughts or ideas do you want to leave Lessons in Leadership LeaderCast viewers with?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a couple of times here, but always be honest with yourself. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of self-reflection. But always be honest with yourself and with anybody that you're working with. Never stop learning and growing, right? Everything we've talked about leadership evolution, we've talked about books we're reading, you know, all of that is about leading and growing. And so I think those are really, really important. On that note, and to tie it back into apprenticeship.
Shameless plug.
I know, right? Well, I do think, you know, probably some of your readers, and I'm surprised that we didn't get the question of like, what is apprenticeship? But like, you know, maybe people aren't feeling like they have that to ask, you know, they might be thinking it but not ready to ask it. So my passion around learning and growing really played into me wanting to do this work. Because the good news is that with apprenticeship, you can both learn and grow at the same time while also making a paycheck, right? So often we're told, well, the only way to learn is to
get to go to school.
Yeah.
You get paid.
Yeah.
And you're working in fields.
Exactly. And getting that experience. For too long, I was working at four-year colleges and seeing folks who were going, you know, they kept coming to my office like, I can't pay the bills, I'm, you know, in class all the time, and then they would spend all this money on their education and go work at, you know, some fast food chain. I would see them at the Waffle House around the corner, working after their...
So here they are with a $40,000 four-year degree, maybe more.
Yeah, I was going to say
allegedly,
like $200,000.
Yeah. And then there they are, not assistant managing, and not making a salary for Waffle House, but I'm here.
Everyday hourly employee. And again, you know,
that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. Right. There's integrity in all the work that you do. However, we want to see you use the skills. I mean, again, wonderfully awesome. I could not eat at Waffle House if there weren't people there serving, but I would know those students, and I would know that they were great public speakers, or that they had incredibly deep engineering thinking minds, right? Problem solvers, right? And so it's like, okay, where else could those skills be best placed? And like, could they be furthering their lives and at the end of the day, making more money? So, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And with apprenticeship, if you don't know what it is, there's an opportunity that you don't even know you have, right?
Sure.
So I definitely want people to leave here and know what apprenticeship is, at least as a viable opportunity for them.
Thank you so much. What a powerful, impactful LeaderCast today. We'll be seeing it in August. And thank you so much for the hospitality, the space, the time.
You bet. Yeah, we've had fun today.
And powerful answers to all the questions. I'm so thankful and appreciative of your time today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will see you guys at the next LeaderCast coming up soon.
I'm excited.